Jambo.
Jambo. So Jambo in Swahili is hello. So hello and welcome to Kilimanjaro, Bangkok, or Tucson. Get into the source of your story. I'm Ginger Derry.
And I'm Roger.
We've been in this business
since 1981. It's been a long time.
So we're kind of newbies at it, We love what we do, and what we really want to do is to share with you some ideas, some thoughts that are really based in what we do and our travel to East Africa. So really, as we go along, and I'll probably say this more than once, we encourage you to write your questions, because even though we have some thoughts of things that we think would be interesting and that we would like to say, we also want to direct it and let you lead us in the direction that you want to go, that you're the most interested in based on who's on the call.
So having started in 1981, a lot of things took place between then and now. And I started out in the trade as a colored stone dealer. That I'd be buying goods in overseas locations, bring them back to the United States, and then I would take them around the jewelry stores, mostly in the upper Midwest, and then I spread out over time and supply stones to jewelers, and we do trunk shows and that sort of thing. And, in the late 90s, I was approached about assisting with the buildup of a gem cutting facility in Namibia. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was being brought in to help focus on just having supplying the marketing for selling their cut stones. As it turned out, they didn't have any cut stones, so they then re-engineered what my purpose was, so that I became sort of the guy that helped them create the opportunity to build two gem cutting schools, one in the north and one in the south, to create employment and also to start manufacturing their own goods. So I was there off and on from 99 to 2001, and during that time, I became sort of acclimated to what happens in Africa and really fell in love with the whole process. And so time went on. In 2001, then I started cutting my own stones, and that kind of changed our life, didn't it? So instead of just handling colored stones from somebody else, I'm now the person producing the colored stones. And through the early 2000s, I was buying rough like at Tucson and other places, and I'd bring it back to the shop. I'd cut the stones, and then we started doing events in stores, gemstone roundtables and that sort of thing. And as we moved forward from about 2008 forward, I realized I really wanted to have more story. I wanted to have something to share with people, not just, oh, I went to Tucson and bought some stones. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just I wanted more. So then I focused on buying goods outside the country. So my first excursion was in 2008, major excursion, I would say, is to Madagascar with a 17-day trip. It was one of those eye-opening situations that in the oh my gosh of the moment of how I experienced things. And it was a great way to step into a new way of doing business, and also created opportunities to buy rough at a lower price, and also gave me an awesome number of stories when I came back home. So from that point forward, I'm now sharing with my wife stories about what I'm witnessing in Madagascar, and after that, further places in Africa.
So Roger would come home with these stories, and I have to tell you, I just couldn't relate to it all, because, yes, we've been in this business, but truly, I'd never thought about where gemstones came from. I'm at the other end of the phone when somebody calls for a gem. I didn't process, gosh, they actually came out of the ground. Hands were used, miners worked to bring these gems to light of day. So it was really eye-opening for me. Roger probably made 20 trips to Africa before I ever went. I first went in 2011 and have made 14 trips since then. It was not even remotely on my bucket list. And now it's someplace that I hold dear, that I actually can't wait to get back to.
So when we're operating in developing countries, like some of the places we visit in Africa, many things there are done on a handshake. And, that's probably how it was done in New York with diamonds in the 50s and 60s and 70s. But that was my experience over there, is watching guys that may not speak my language and I may not speak their language, but once you've shaken hands and looked each other in the eye, there's a transition of the bond of we're just acquaintances to become friends. And so as we travel there, one of the things that sort of began to happen from 99 forward is the concept of holistic sourcing. So that we've talked about in the industry about ethical sourcing or doing the right thing and all that, but really our philosophy has become and has been that we want to leave the location that we visit in a better place than when we arrived. And that might mean a different thing in each place we go to. So we might visit a location in southern Kenya, kind of a high desert area where it's really dry, and they might be mining and we might be visiting their mine. And that in that situation, we have an opportunity to contribute to them. So wanting to leave them in a better place. So we're going to bring cooking oil, we're going to bring bottled water, we're going to bring corn, beans, rice, or whatever that we have a sense they might need. And we're going to ask our local guides and people that we work with to kind of coach us on that. Things that, okay, well, go to this mine, that they need things to actually eat. Like as an example, one of the, it's a school that we support in northern Tanzania. And when we go to visit, we know that they only have like 200 cups or bowls to serve food to the kids. So what they need is another 250 for the balance of the kids there. So that's one of those things that, what are they, 12 or 14 cents a piece? So it's not a big issue on our end financially, but we know that it means a big deal to them. So that's our way of like coming alongside them and meeting them where they are and taking care of some of the small needs.
So as we choose to work in a community, we are looking long-term, and we're looking for what are the ways that we can contribute long-term. So Roger mentioned food, and that's very pertinent for most of the mines that we go to. A year ago, we were in Malawi for the first time, and Malawi is the 5th or 6th poorest country in the world. And so when I say that they have a gem industry, it's kind of like, really, it's not even an industry. It hasn't risen to that level. What's happening is that people who are farmers, and this is the way it is in most countries, they're farmers first, and they're finding some gemstones on their land, and they don't really have any idea what they have. So they come and eat with us, and they'll set across the table a number of like red, it'll be garnets, and they'll say, red, nice. And we look at it, and Roger with his visor on and his flashlights pushes them back and says, no, they're too included for me. And they push them back, red, nice. And Roger says, no, same thing, they're too included for me. And so he then took off his visor, handed it to the gentleman, who's actually the head of his tribe, and along with his light. And you could watch the light bulb go on in this man's head because he didn't know what was inside these gems. So for all these years that people have been buying there, the miners don't know. So they're really at a disadvantage. So that was in January last year. We went back in June and we did a half-day training for the miners, just some basics, talking about inclusions and showing them some of the tools that we had. And the government and the miners were so pleased that they asked us to come back. So we're going in May. This year, we're taking 3 graduate gemologists, and we're doing a 3-day training, not just for the miners, but also for the brokers and for the government. So we just feel that it's a way to really lift up the community, make the community richer, leave them they're encouraged, they have hope to go forward, and it's way more than just buying. So it's leaving something of ourselves behind, and hopefully they have a really positive attitude about the Americans that come and the people in the jewelry industry in America.
There's another location we visit. For some of you might have watched the film Sharing the Rough. There's one particular mine that we entered, owned by a family, Sunni and Pia. And when we visit them, we know we're going to spend the day with them. They're going to allow us the opportunity to actually go into their mine and witness what it's like. But we know that Sunni and Pia probably aren't doing all that well. So we look for ways to come alongside them as well and contribute. It might be we arranged for a scholarship for their son to learn how to do gem cutting. So, here's a kid that probably would have been unemployed or maybe working at his dad's mine, but now he has an opportunity to step into another realm.
Well, and it's other things too. When we were there, he needed a new cable for his mine.
Right.
So we collected money from everybody that was in the vehicle and gave him money for that. We've given money to have repairs for their car because it's coming alongside and partnering with them. And again, leaving them with encouragement. So just a kind of a segue here. For those of you that are on the call, and thank you for being on the call, We said in the beginning, so I'll say again, if you have questions, ask the questions, because it lets us know the direction that you all would like to go. Because we certainly we could talk for a long time, because this is what we love to talk about and what we do. But we want to know where you want to go. So please do put the questions in.
So a while back, we were visiting a pretty good sized mine. They had about 100 men working there. And this is in southern Kenya, commonly referred to as CBO, which is community-based organization. So in the early part of this operation, 2014-15, there was about close to 1,600 men and women miners came together to work together on one project. So they shared in proceeds. And they elected a board of about 25 people to help run the operation. And in doing so, well, they created a lot of holes in the ground. And so we were visiting there with a team of people, and one of the people was asking one of the directors, and she said, so why don't you guys just pool your money and buy a backhoe, and look at all the work you guys are doing by hand? And so he very calmly and very reassuredly looks back at her and says, well, you know, we probably could afford between 1,600 of us to buy a backhoe, but then we'd have about 1,550 people unemployed. So here we think we're operating in a holistic manner, but can you imagine 1,600 people employed? They're not getting wealthy by any means, but occasionally they do make a strike, and they end up, you know, making more in one day than they probably make the whole year. I'm making an estimate that I don't know the exact amounts that this would happen, but there's another situation with, you know, coming alongside them and offering consistent help, bringing them food, that sort of thing. That's what we did.
That reminds me too, when we traveled to Sri Lanka, we have two different ways that they do mining in Sri Lanka. And I should also say that Sri Lanka has zero unemployment. So you see most of the time, people are working very, very hard, very diligently. They're digging by hand. And this is not easy work. I wouldn't say any mining is easy work. And yet you can get a backhoe and you can mine that way, but you pay quite a bit more for your mining license. So they kind of equaled the ground, so to speak.
So we have a question came in. Curious to know how you started this journey and why you decided East Africa was your destination. So great question.
It came from somebody who's traveled, Chris Clover at Fields Jewelers in California, who's traveled with us a couple of times and called him Papa Raj.
Yes. So
nickname from the trip.
Yeah. Well, it isn't like I have a nickname for every trip, but this one I did. So after traveling to Africa in 99 to 2001, I knew I had an interest in doing what I was doing, as far as contributing there and bringing back my own rough. And from that point forward, I recognized that we had to find locations to operate in where they actually accepted us to come in. So Kenya and Tanzania are well known for their gem rough. Obviously, it's infamous if anything else. And they were two countries that would allow us to come in without special permits and that sort of thing. So that's kind of how the journey started there. Plus, I worked in a mining camp in 2009, and at the time there was about 30 of us, mostly locals. And so they assigned a young guy about 18 and his dad, who was about 35 or 36, to work with me. So basically, when you're mining, you're like digging trenches. So that wasn't what, it's not one of those things you aspire to, Anyway, I did it for the first 6 days. I contracted with them for 2 weeks. I stayed the first 6 days, and I realized they were like kicking my butt. So I found a way to get out of there. So.
Well, but it was the experience that was really the most important. And I think that part of why we continue to go back to East Africa is certainly the very prolific amount of gem rough that's there. More than that, there's opportunities for us to contribute. We know brokers, we know drivers, we feel safe. They know us. When we walk into any given location, they're there. Oh, Mr. Rogers, that's his name. And I'm Mrs. Rogers, I think. Is that what they call it? Yeah. So, I mean, it's very welcoming. So we feel like we've made a difference. And in taking jewelers back with us, we introduce them to the people that we know. So it's very clear that there's relationships, and the jewelry industry is built on relationships. Roger said built on a handshake. So it's built on these relationships that have developed since Roger first went to East Africa in 2009.
Yes.
2009. So he's made a number of trips back, at least 2 times a year. So the locals know us, the mine owners know us, the gal on the side of the road where we buy fresh vegetables from each trip knows us. Um, our driver, who has driven us for probably 3 or 4 years now, he let us know that how important it was that we came and we brought others with us to East Africa, because for each one of the people on our trip, they financially impact 150 people in East Africa. A lot of people. So if we have a trip of 14 people, okay, I can't do the math, but we got the idea. It's a lot of people that are financially being impacted because, yes, you can pick up the phone and call somebody. But by going there and seeing you're buying food, you're staying at a hotel, we're buying gas, we're buying trinkets. So we're contributing all the way along.
So another question, why did you decide to take other jewelers to have the experience, and how can we make a difference, and what can we bring back to our communities? Well, I didn't think about bringing jewelers or others with me other than other gem cutters in 2009 and 10. But in 2011, it just kind of hit me like all these retailers that we work with, they get to hear our story. You know, when we come back and I'm sharing with them about we visited this particular mine, and here's some photographs of it, and we open our book like, here's a book. Now we open a book kind of like this, and we're showing some of the locations we visited. My tutorial person. And along the way, I realized, you know, why don't jewelers have their story? And so the whole concept of why we even doing this today is so that we can help others create their story. So the purpose was jewelers come with us, they experience what I experienced, they sit down at the buying table just like we do, they meet with the miners, they meet with the brokers. I mean, they actually get to know these people. Sometimes we go to their homes, we visit orphanages, we visit schools we've been supporting. There's a lapidary school in Tanzania we've been supporting for 6 years. So we've sponsored, assisted sponsoring 18 different kids to go through and get an education on how to be a gem cutter. And here I am, you know, building up people to compete against me. It doesn't make sense, but it's my passion. That's why we're doing it.
So, you know, when we started going to East Africa, what I have to say really is it wasn't on my bucket list, and this really wasn't any place that I would choose to go. I'm a Marriott girl. Give me like a nice comfy bed and nice coffee in the morning, and I'm a happy camper. So we laugh, but there's a lot of truth to that. So the first time that I went was in 2011. And I honestly, I really didn't know what to expect. I'd heard Roger's stories, but that's far different than experiencing it for myself. Because as I said, I didn't have any idea where the gems came from. I didn't know anything about mining. I'm not really an outdoor kind of girl. And that's
Camping was not in her
yes, that's
in
true.
her view.
It's true. So, you know, we're talking Africa because obviously we have a lot of stories from Africa that we share with retailers, but we also share with retail clients when we're working in stores. And that's clearly the focus, but really it doesn't have to be that for you. It could be, like the title said, Kilimanjaro, Bangkok, Tucson. It's finding someplace that you have a passion for, that you can contribute back, and that you can develop a story. Because people want stories. Our guide that we always use in Sri Lanka went to a British boarding school, which isn't surprising because Sri Lanka used to be Ceylon, and it was an English colony. And he said that one of the tenets that they taught them as students was to be interested and to be interesting. And sometimes I think we forget we can spout off a lot of facts, but it's to be interesting and to have a story to share with people that will touch them in such a way that they want what you have. And it's like either they want the experience, or in our case, they want the gems, or they want the jewelry that you're selling, or they want the excitement that you're building with the story that you're sharing with them.
So, where I leave off at?
So Chris is asking how you can take this back to your communities. So for jewelers going with us to Africa, we have a few jewelers that have done different things. So I'll use Chris first. So Chris is kind of like a social media queen. She can take all the pictures on her iPhone and make videos. And literally, we will be in Africa and she's making a video of that day and then posting it. So she is sharing on a moment to moment basis what she's experiencing in Africa. So her clients, this is what they want to follow. They want to be a part of it. When we go out there, they're rushing into the store to meet these people, Papa Raj, Mama Ginger, that take her to East Africa. And, there's less than 1% of all the jewelers in the United States that go to the source. So that's a really small number. So by doing something different, there's an opportunity to set yourselves apart. Again, we're talking Africa, but it really could be any place as well. So if you're Dave McConnell, who is in Walnut Creek, California, also an AGS jeweler, Dave's traveled with us a couple of times. That first trip in 2011, he and I were the get that coffee in the morning buddies. And so Dave has done a lot of radio interviews, television interviews. He's had newspaper articles written about him, and he has a slideshow going constantly in his store about his travels to Africa. So clients know that this is where Dave goes. He also goes to Israel on a regular basis to source diamonds. So he is truly going to the source, and clients appreciate that.
So other sources that you could visit, you could go to Maine and visit the Tourmaline mine. You can go to North Carolina and find out where they first mined for rhodolite garnet. You could go there also look up the ruby mines. You can go to the Pala property in Southern California and go mining for morganite or coonzite or tourmaline. You could go to Oregon. I mean, it's not that far. You can go to Oregon and go to visit the mines there. They have programs available that you can come and camp for a week and you can do your own mining. I mean, that's a lot of fun. So that's certainly something that can be done. And then just about every state in the nation has some kind of a gem entity. Like ours is a greenstone here in Michigan that, it's not very transparent, so I don't consider it fun for me, but others do. So if you live in Oregon, I mean, of course you're gonna go visit the Sunstone mines.
So if like Laura Stanley, as an example, living in Arkansas, she has done, I don't know how many different types of events around Arkansas diamonds. And so it's something that she is known for in her area. So it's really finding something that is of interest and that you can have a passion, that you can share that story with your clients, because it's showing transparency. It's showing that you go to the source and you have a commitment to that, and about sourcing as well, and about the story. So it makes you very interesting.
So imagine this. You arrange to have a trip, let's say it's Bangkok, or maybe you go to South America, or maybe you come to Africa, and you visit a series of mines over 2 or 3 days, and you end up buying maybe half a dozen pieces of rough. I mean, the story of buying all that is a really cool thing to share with your clients. Then to take that rough back to the United States, arrange for whoever cuts your stones, have them cut the stones and document the cutting of the stones, do a little video of them doing the work. And then you've got that in the store. I mean, you've got a continuous play of you buying the rough in Africa and then bringing the goods back home and then making the story with your gem cutter and then presenting that in the store. And then you're going to have people wanting to have that stone or stones.
So then what you can do is do your own book that has pictures of you. And this is what we will do for the people that come with us to Africa, so that they have their own book, that they can share the stories. I mean, certainly we love it when they have our book and they share our stories, but we like it when they share their own. So really, we're talking and we're using some of the buzzwords: ethical sourcing and transparency, responsible. So not every jeweler that we talk to says that they have clients coming in and asking questions about that. I know some jewelers do have people coming in and asking questions, and some don't. But really, we feel the responsibility is on us, on you, if you're a store owner, to be talking about these things so that they have the answers. They know this is what you as a jewelry store are doing, that you're interested in sourcing, you're interested in transparency, you're interested in ethical and responsible, And see, that's partly why we feel holistic covers it, because holistic is bigger than any one of those items. Because I think we all would like to believe that we're ethical, and ethics really come from our internal morals and ethics, and each person is different. So, if I say I'm ethical, I don't know, it kind of feels like I am and you're not. So I believe that we all in this industry, because it is an industry built on a handshake. So holistic is about leaving people larger. It's about encouraging and giving them hope. So all of these questions are important, whether they're coming in as clients asking the questions, or maybe they aren't, but they're still important for us to be addressing and us to be sharing. And then it shows that you're leading the way. And that sets you apart in your city, because in every town, in every community that we are in, somebody's telling the story or somebody isn't.
So we know that everybody wants to elevate the sales in their store. And we believe and are truly believe that having a great story also helps you create sales, because they aren't just buying the gemstone or the piece of jewelry, they're buying the story behind that. No different than, to give you an example, Canadian diamonds. I mean, many of the stores we work with also handle Canadian diamonds because they want to have that, the legacy of, we bought our stones from a place that we know they've been ethically sourced or holistically sourced or what it might be, but they get to bring that story back, and they probably have memorized the story of how the Canadian diamonds even came to be. And so we would like retailers to also have a story. And it can be any one of those locations we've talked about earlier. You making a trip somewhere, it doesn't have to be a trip, but there has to be a story to be able to elevate yourself above your local competition.
So even if it's someplace local, oh gosh, I got really kind of close there. So bring back something from your trips, because I like what I call props. See the book I was showing you? It's a prop that I can use because I can tell a story from it. We like to take these cute little animals. Each one is unique and they're wonderful. We get them at the Maasai market and in Tanzania, in Arusha. And it's another way to give back, because the women make these as a living. But when we go and do events in stores, we put these cute little animals in the showcases. So maybe they don't think that they're interested in gemstones, but they're interested in finding out about the little elephant. And then that starts a story. Another would be to have gem rough. So this is a favorite piece of gem rough that I have. It's not cuttable. This is Miralani mint garnet. And I love to show the gem rough when I'm showing pictures of the Miralani mint garnet mine, because also when they find Miralani mint, they also find tanzanite. I don't know if you can see the cute little pieces of blue. That's tanzanite in the rough. So it gives you credibility, and credibility is directly related to sales, because the more credible you are, the more relatable, the more integrative you are, the higher the sales are going to be, because you're relating to them, and you're relating to them on a different level. You're sharing your story, you're sharing an experience, you're sharing something that's different that shows that you've actually been there.
So we have another question. Having been to Africa myself, I love seeing the work you do. Many exploit the story to bring back financial gain for themselves. I've seen so much different from you two. Explain how you've been able to become so connected to the people in Africa and your relationships with them. Oh my, you can't just go to Africa, or at least for us anyway, to just go there one time and you meet a few people and you develop, your 5-minute conversations and you get to know somebody a little bit. Our philosophy is that for us to actually serve them and to assist them in building their businesses, we need regular contact. So we're in contact by WhatsApp when we get back, and Skype or whatever you're using. We're staying in contact with them. We're finding out, if they, as an example, when the Miralani mint garnet pocket was discovered in December 2011, we were already planning on being there 3 weeks later. I knew what they'd found. I mean, I had details and photographs. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So I'm arriving, I already know what I'm going to be looking at. I saw pictures of it, but I want to be able to select in person. So there's a unique circumstance, but there's going to be others too. So I think it's valuable that, I don't know, we're looking for ways to make a difference in our community of all the jewelers we work with. We want jewelers to have an opportunity to do the same thing with their customers.
So, it really comes down to, as humans, we want relationships. That's what we're about. And the people that we connect with in Tanzania and Kenya, Malawi, Sri Lanka, they're not any different. They want those relationships too. And when they see that somebody's willing to contribute to them and come alongside them and give them not what we think they should have, but what they really want. So that's far different. And we find that the relationships, like Roger said, they go on. So like, for instance, we needed to know when a particular elementary school was going to be open next year or later this year.
Yeah.
So we asked our friend Pia, and she couldn't get the information yet. So we asked our driver, Vincent, if he knew, because he has kids in school. And he said, well, no, actually, it's a different region, but I'll drive out there. This is a 2.5, 3-hour drive to get the information from us. So it's a deep relationship that spans really all of what holistic is, which is body, mind, spirit, mental, physical, social. It's all of that. So it's special to us. So back to how to share the story, because we've talked about social. That would be Chris, who does that really well, Dave McConnell. So I'm going to use Jim Kroll, who is a gentleman in our area who's a graduate gemologist. He owns an appraisal service and has for a number of years. So back in the 80s, there was this opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia. Now, people didn't really go to Saudi Arabia in the 80s and take their family and their 2 young kids for 2 years. But the opportunity was to do an appraisal on all of the royal family jewels. So Jim took this, and it was a risk. It was not what people did in the 80s. And when he came back, he used that story on radio, on TV. He went out and talked to civic groups. I actually filled in for him once, and it was a group of like 8 older ladies that just were interested in gemstones. But literally, I will tell you that everyone in the Metro Detroit area, where we're from and where Jim's from, they know about Birmingham Gemological Services. So that's not color, that's diamonds, not very different from Laura Stanley. So that's a way that he made it very rich for people here. They knew what he was all about. Another example, Maggie and Carlos, they're in Brentwood and outside LA, California, also AGS. So they traveled with us this last year, and they happen to love art because, of course, they're both artists. Maggie's a designer and Carlos is a very gifted jeweler and diamond setter. So they bought this really beautiful picture that they have on the wall in their showroom. And it's a very unique picture, and it's the only thing on that wall. And when people come in, they ask, and Maggie and Carlos start laughing, and they tell the story about getting the picture, and they're sharing themselves, they're sharing their excitement. Then they start talking about going to the elephant rehabilitation place and how the elephant that they adopted, they got to take pictures and hug the elephant and play with the elephant. And then they walk people over to a showcase that has a few little animals in it and some gem rough in it and some gemstones as well. And so they would say that their sales of colored gems have gone up dramatically. And this is what we find is that if you tell the story, the sales will go up. Now, it may not be the story of color equals story or sales of color, but if you're interesting and you have a story that shows your passion and shows that you're interested in more than just what's in the cases, they're going to want to be with you because that's human.
So even if you go to, say, Oregon and you mine for sunstone, this is a situation where you're going to capture in photo and video all that took place at the time that you're there. And you're going to come back and you're going to share that with your clients in the store. And you want to enroll them in the whole process. Now, it might not be the digging of the mine. It might be the sorting of the rough that captures their attention. It might be the actual faceting of how it happens. But one of those things is going to capture their attention. And that's what you want to capitalize on. And we want to offer, hopefully, an idea here through today that you have a way to do this for you.
So questions. Please do ask your questions because we're moving along here and we can keep talking. Again, you can tell for a long time, but ask us questions because that'll let us know which direction that you'd like to go. Because we feel that the story is so important. It's the connection with your clients. And you don't know what that connection point is going to be. It might actually be the gemstones themselves, but what if it's travel? And then you're able to connect with them on the travel where you've gone and where they've gone, and viewing different cultures and experiencing new foods, experiencing everything that goes along with going to a new culture. But sometimes it's the animals that will connect with people. I've had people tell me that after they've been to the elephant rehabilitation place and then they share that with people, all of a sudden they have a connection, and it has to do with elephants. Well, that's something, it's special to have that. And it's special when you've seen kids or you've been to an orphanage and you've been able to contribute and you feel that what you're doing is a far greater good than what you could do on your own because you're part of a larger purpose.
So if we have other questions, let's see what we have here.
So well, I guess what I would also say is that being different is what will set you apart. Because in this industry, we can begin to look the same if we're selling similar merchandise. So what sets us apart is what we're doing that's different, what we're doing that's unique, the story that we can share with people that has them want to come and hear a story, want to come and hear about a new experience.
So another question, in today's market, do you feel jewelers have a responsibility to know where the materials are sourced? Yes, more on that. This is beyond the story, creating custom, ethical, or holistic. So I think it's imperative. I mean, if you don't know where your goods are coming from, you could be compromised. So I think it's, you need to go out and ask the questions from your vendors, whoever they are, that they need to know where the goods are coming from. So that way everybody's protected along the chain. So as far as this is beyond the story, I don't know, jewelers, you have to take some action. That's part of it.
So here's a question: is the hot new topic for clients or customers or millennials? I'm trying to read it. Do millennials want more color? So I would say, actually, I think all clients want more color. Our experience is that many clients, they've been shown diamonds. They've seen a lot of diamonds, and diamonds are wonderful. But as we travel to stores, I'm amazed at the clients that come in, particularly if we're doing a trunk show type, where they just happen to walk in and they're like, wow, look at all this color. And we're showing them things that they're not going to see someplace else, like scapolite, clinohumite, aragonite. I can't even think of some of those ites, except for not spessartite. That's my current pet peeve. They changed it from spessartite to spessartine, and I can't quite ever keep it straight. So yes, it is very hot that they want color, and they want to know where it comes from. They really like being able to meet the people that go to the mines. They like the story. They want the story, but truly, I think everybody does. And we give a birth certificate with every gem, so they know exactly where the gem comes from. People love that because it just has them feel really special and connected and know that they know more than they would otherwise.
So another question, and of our gemstone collection, how much or what percentage do you source directly from your trips to Africa? Well, we handle about 35 different gem species or types. So I would say probably about 55 to 60% of what we sell that we're actually sourcing in Africa. The other 40 or so percent are coming from some things from Brazil that are shipped to us that we then recut, or we routinely go to, we're in Sri Lanka once a year, sometimes twice a year to restock, mostly sapphire, but we get other gem types there as well. Now I have to recut all those because they would never measure up to what we have as a standard.
He's a perfectionist.
It's not such a bad thing to be a perfectionist. It's a good time to be a perfectionist.
It's true. It's true.
So out of those, I think the goods that come from Sri Lanka have to be sourced as already cut stones, whereas because they don't export rough. Whereas in Africa, we're focusing on goods that are still in the rough form, and that's what we're working with there to give you. Thank you, Gina. Another question here.
So I just wanted to okay, before I answer that question, go back to holistic sourcing about education. I think that's a good place to go. So education has always been really important to Roger and to me as well, but I think more so to him. He didn't come from a family where higher education was paid for. So it was something that he sought after and had to work pretty hard to get. And so what he's done, most of it's been self-taught. And so education is important, whether it's for families or for faceting. So we love going and taking people with us to Peter Sala's school. It's in Arusha, Tanzania, where they actually get to see people cutting gemstones and learning firsthand about faceting. And it's really, they're learning on very, very basic machinery. And we have taken two American-made faceting machines that are very precise. So that, and we've done this through the Devon Foundation, and it's made a great difference, and it's going to make an even greater difference because the laws keep changing. What we learn is this is Africa, things change on a day-by-day basis, but their current law is that they're not going to allow export of any rough. They will only allow, this is starting when, 2019?
Yeah, well, the ban that's in place right now, that actually happened middle of January, and they're starting to allow rough to be exported. But there was a month and a half period that there was great difficulty. Anybody who's in the business was probably fearful that they now have to change the whole cycle of how they operate. But now rough can be exported again, thankfully.
Yes. So somebody is asking if jewelers do want to go to Africa on our next trip, how would they go about doing that? So typically we take a group of retailers and we take them right after JCK in June because actually it's their winter, so it's slightly cooler there. Actually very pleasant to be exact. And we're there for about 10 days. And so if that's something that is of interest, give a shout to Roger at rogerdairy.com. And we will give you the particulars. I think we have, do we have any seats? I'm not sure that we do.
No, we don't.
We don't. If there's enough, we may add another vehicle. So we travel in big Land Cruisers, and they're full with all of our luggage in the back and the driver and guide. We should say we always travel with a driver and guide. Again, it's back to safety and just knowing who we're working with. And there's people that we've fired because we don't like working with them for some reason or another. And so we don't because we want to work with people that want to work with us. And I think we're all like that. You want to feel welcomed. So with Americans coming over to buy rough, has it changed the economy in East Africa? And yes, it has. So one of the places that we have, there's a couple places. So let me say first, we buy zircon at Happy Mother Camp. And Happy Mother Camp is in Tanga, Tanzania, in the middle of nowhere, but also every mine is in the middle of nowhere. So the first time we went to this mine, and it was 5 years ago. And when we went there, first of all, it was just an adventure to get to the mine to find it because we got lost a couple times. And there were maybe 10 guys working there, and they were in tents. And, it's just camping out. So we went back this last trip in maybe a year ago, and it was amazing. There's actually a town there. So yes, it's made a huge difference. In Longido, where the children's school is that we support, in the 7 years since I first went there, now there are power lines, which is kind of scary because it's getting more and more people, but it's good for the economy. The elementary school now has 500 kids in it. A lot of this is because with the Devon Foundation, we brought a need to them and said the kids need a hot lunch. So they're having a hot breakfast and a hot lunch. So 500 kids have hope. 500 kids that when they didn't have hot lunches, 25 kids took the exam to pass to the next level, and 2 passed. With a hot lunch, 24 out of 25 are passing. So it's like, wow, yes, it's making a huge difference. And people like Vincent, our driver, he tells us the difference that it makes to families that we're directly related to. Okay. Mm.
So, question about, are there more women involved in the business side as far as the mining and that sort of thing? So in Tanzania that we know, there's a Women's Mining Association with about 90 members that are active and about 200 that are moderately active. They call them inactive, probably because they haven't paid dues or whatever it is. But anyway, the 90 that are active, we've met with them on more than one occasion. And they arranged for, there's another school, a lapidary school in Arusha, Tanzania. This one's owned by the government. So this particular location arranged for 18 young ladies to learn how to be gem cutters. So in one 6-month span, all of a sudden you have all these people that are now gem cutters. So yes, there's action on that side. There's also a women's group in Malawi that is involved in mining. And there's also a group that we know of in Kenya that's involved in mining.
Yeah. Some of you, if you saw Sharing the Roughs, are a good friend of Kennel that Roger's known since 2009. And when he died, his wife, 2 years ago, his wife took over the mine and now actually has another mine that she's working with a number of women. And it's been quite successful. And, you know, for her, the encouragement is knowing that we're going to come and that we want to buy from her. And we've been able to contribute to her family, to her 3 kids. So, you know, the good work keeps on going.
We have another question in, as Tanzania has banned exportation of rough gemstones, are you going to be buying in Mozambique, DRC, Rwanda, and other places and collecting Tanzanian gems from those countries? The answer is no, we probably won't. We do visit Malawi. It's relatively safe. Same with Namibia. Kenya and Tanzania, of course, are relatively safe. So we don't have any issue with buying goods there, but getting to the DRC and Mozambique probably isn't in my sweet spot of where I'd like to work. Rwanda is probably possible, but I don't know that there's many gems being found in Rwanda other than amethyst. After that, there might be other things, but we're not hearing of it.
So it needs to be safe for us to go. And that's also part of the story, because people can understand that we're not going to go someplace that it isn't safe, because I don't think most of us do go places that really aren't safe for us. And it's back to the relationship. We want to work with people that we have those long-term relationships with. And by us doing that and sharing that with people, with retail clients, those same retail clients, they realize, oh, that's what this jewelry store is about too. So sales increase when there's more relationships. And so us and sharing these stories with you and ideas for stories, okay, great, this is what Roger and Ginger do. But back to, what can you do? What are you passionate about? I'd say take a trip anywhere, whether it's going to Tucson, and ask more questions if you would. Whether it's going to Tucson and it's your first time seeing all those gems and rough in one places, and oh my gosh, they have geodes and they're selling rugs at the same time, then go, take pictures, make a book, make a slideshow, put it on social media, tell that story. Okay, you're not going to take a trip, so go find your local art history, natural history museum, a jewelry museum, and partner with them. Do something fun. Again, take pictures of yourself. So actually, this is kind of funny. Rogelio Carranza from Monterrey, Mexico. So they went on this last trip with us, 2 years ago. Anyway, they have Mexican fire opal mines. So they were going to be traveling somewhere. And he said, great, I'm going to take my 3 boys. I'm going to take my nephews. This is going to be really fun. We're going to go to, Mexican fire opal. So they're all out, and there's like all these rocks, and they're all outside, and you take a little hammer and you're like, tap, 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 tap. No one found anything, and nothing opened. And this went on for like 2 hours, and the kids were getting really quite bored. And then all of a sudden, one popped and opened and could see Mexican fire opal inside. And pretty soon, all the kids were like so darned excited they could hardly stand it. And so as he shares this story, it really is so true. It's a human spirit, that we search and we search, but we need that encouragement just to keep going.
We have about 9 minutes left, so if you have questions, good time to pop them in now. So someone's asked if we do general events in the stores. Yes, we do. And up until now, the majority of everything we work on that we supply has been cut by me. But at some point in time, if we sell more than I can physically do myself, we're going to have to engineer a way to have somebody else do some of the work with me.
Well, and actually, I do think our daughter Rachel just finished a gem, so
Oh, that's right.
that counts
Yeah.
too. So
She finished a beautiful Malaya garnet a couple of days
yeah,
ago.
so she's back to faceting, which of course we love. In signature cuts, you have a few. Well, one would be really signature.
Yeah. Well, people tease me about doing Asher cuts because, oh my gosh, it's so diamond-like. But you know what? They're fun for me to do. They're very precise, which has its good and bad parts. Takes longer, but they look great when I get done. And I also do a signature cushion. I've blended a square cushion outline and wedded it to an Asher pavilion. And it just comes out really sweet looking. We just finished a 8-carat Malaya garnet recently. It just turned out fantastic.
It was like literally, I think he finished it and it sold the next day at an event. So we'll do that one again. So how Roger decides really on what types of cuts to use for us to bring to retailers is the response that we get from clients. Because if clients come in and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm not so sure about that, you probably won't do it again. But if they come in and they buy, like literally, we cut Ashers. Listen to that. He cuts Ashers and they're gone. He cuts these cushions with an Asher bottom pavilion. They're gone. So we try to do things that clients appreciate, that are unique, but still fit the majority of the jewelry stores that we work with. So somebody says, if somebody goes on a trip, how do they pick the rough? Will Roger cut the rough and create their own line of jewelry? Wow, okay, that's a lot in one question. So yes, you will pick your own rough. Yes, Roger will be right there, looking over your shoulder, giving guidance, pointing out and saying, pick that one. Absolutely, he will do that. He also documents start to finish, usually one gem for each person on the trip, because obviously it takes time to do the documenting, to take pictures and videos so they have a story to tell. And if you want to create a line of jewelry with what we have taken that you purchased on the trip, absolutely, we're going to be right alongside you. It's the same thing. We want relationship. We want long-term relationships, just like we want long-term relationships with the people in Africa, because that's what we're about and that's what's important to us.
So if you happen to come on a trip, I'm not going to say, okay, just pick those pieces up. I'm going to show you why you would choose one piece of rough over another. It's a teaching moment for you as well. I mean, you're going to be working in an area that is not natural for you or not native for you. So I'm not going to let you go back home with a bunch of junk. I mean, I'm going to ensure that you buy great looking pieces that are worth having cut and worth showing to your clients.
We will, though, we also do encourage that people buy some rough that really isn't even cuttable, so that they have examples in their store, so that they can say, look, this is what a garnet crystal looks like. This is what iolite looks like, so they can see that as it turned, it will be micro. Yes. So that was something that we would also do as well. So we're going to be working right alongside with whoever travels with us, and you can ask anyone who's traveled with us to help create their story and to make their story relevant to their community and use their strengths, which are going to be different from our strengths. Like some might be social media, some might be radio and TV, some is loving art and sharing the art. So it's creating your story. So again, our examples are from Africa because that's what we know the most. And so what is it that is important to you? What is it that you want to create your story around? Because, our story's good. We know that, but clients want your story and they want you to tell something that's different, that's something that's not what they can find down the street.
So we believe there's a significant distinction between you sharing our story with your client and you sharing your story with the client. Saying it in the first person is so much more powerful, and we'd like to have you have that opportunity, whatever avenue that takes. Next question.
We sound passionate about what we do. We are. Glad, and thank you. I'm glad that came across. And we believe that this story it's a story, but it's life, it's truth, that it does translate to clients. We've sat next to clients, we've sat across the counter from clients, and literally they've been in tears. I've been in tears as well, because we share a connection, and connections are human, connections are relationship, connections are sales, connections are the basis for long-term relationships and increased sales. And the story is what this industry is talking about, that everyone needs to have a story. And many vendors have really, really great stories. We want to come alongside you and say, here are some ideas for how you can create your own story. That's what the clients want. They want your story. And millennials in particular, they want your story.
So occasionally we're working in stores. We have customers coming in the daytime. We might be out in Arizona or California, some location. And as people come in during the day, the people that tend to be younger 20 to 30-year-olds, that particular group really wants to know the details. Okay, if this was mined in Africa, which country in Africa? Do you know anything more about it? I mean, they're asking those kinds of questions. So if they're asking now when they're 25, they're going to still be asking those questions when they're 35 and 45, because it's ingrained in them. That's who they are. So we need to be prepared. You all too need to be prepared to be able to answer those questions. The vendors that you're working with, go back and ask them, where does this come from, and to get the story behind it.
Holistic is a difficult concept to understand. Holistic resourcing is next, heading into 2018. What is your tagline now? We've been using holistic sourcing.
Well, we've been using holistic sourcing as a way to speak about it for a very long time. So for us on our end, ethical sourcing became a buzzword or a very hot topic probably in the last 5 to 8 years. We may even have places where you can go and participate in a conference about ethical sourcing. So we've been living ethical sourcing going back to '99, when it first it really hit us that we had to be that way. So for the last 18, 19 years, we've been operating in a holistic way because that's who we are. That's who we've made ourselves to be. It's part of what we believe.
So, and all of this, the story, holistic sourcing, connecting with clients, answering their questions that they might have prior, it's essential for staying in business, and it's important. So it is discovery to destination, that what's happened, and you're able to share convincingly, compellingly, that discovery to destination, that GEMS, the process is precise, it's ethical, people are loved along the way, people are encouraged along the way, families are richer along the way, countries, communities are richer along the way. This is powerful. This is change. And it's far more than just a transaction. It's a way of life, and it's something that is essential for our industry to be relevant for generations.
Sure.
It looks like, are we ending our time? Oh, thank you for your inspiration in heading into 2018 with a new way for jewelers to conduct business. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate you attending.
Actually, in Swahili, we'd say asante sana. Thank you very much. And thank you to American Gem Society for hosting this for us. And thank you all participants.
And if you have further questions, you're welcome to shoot us an email, ginger@rogersdairy.com or rachel@rogersdairy.com, or send it to me at rogersdairy.com, or you can give us a call, either way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.